Hello everyone, it's Miss Hinde-Taylor here reading chapter 17 of Half a King by Yarvi, and the title of this chapter is One Friend. Far north now, the oar slaves dragged the south wind, over the Black Sea with winter on the march. Snow fell often, settling on the roofs of the ship's castles, across the shoulders of the shivering rowers, blowing smoke onto their numb fingers with each stroke. All night the broken hull groaned. In the morning, men leaned over the sides to crack ice from its wounded flanks. At sunset, Shadiksharim would wander from her cabin wrapped in furs, eyes and nostrils rimmed with boozy pink, and say she didn't think it was overly cold. "I try to keep love in my heart," said Jowd, grasping with both hands at the soup Yarvi handed him, "but gods, I hate the north." "There's nowhere more north than this," answered Rolf, rubbing at the tips of his ears as he frowned out towards the white blanket of the coast. Ankran, as usual, added nothing. The sea was an ice-flecked emptiness, groups of lumpen seals watching them sadly from the rocky shoreline. They saw a few other ships, and when they did, Trig glowered towards them, hand on his sword, until there were dots in the distance. However powerful the High King thought himself, his licence would not protect them out here. "Most merchants lack the courage for these waters." Shadiksharim wedged her boot carelessly on an oarsman's leg. "But I am not most merchants." Yarvi silently thanks the god for this. "The Banyas who live out in this icy hell worship me as a goddess, for I bring pots and knives and iron tools which they treat like elf magic, and ask only for pelts and amber which to them are so plentiful as to be next to worthless. They'll do anything for me, poor brutes." She rubbed her palms together with an eager hissing. "Here my best profits are made." And indeed, the Banyas were waiting for the south wind when she finally broke through the shore ice to a slimy jetty at a grey beach. They made the Shen seem the height of civilization in Yarvi's memory, all swathed in furs so they looked more bears or wolves than men, their shaggy faces pierced with splinters of polished bone and studs of amber, their bows fluttering with feathers and their clubs set with teeth. Yarvi wondered if there were human teeth, and decided people who scratched a living from this miserly land could afford to waste nothing. "I will be 4 days away." Shadiksharim vaulted over the ship's side and clomped down the warped timbers of the jetty, the south wind sailors following with her cargo lashed to clumsy sleds. "Trig, you're in charge." "She'll be better than when you left her," the overseer called back with a grin. 4 days of idleness," Yarvi hissed as the last light stained the sky red, fretting at his thrall collar with his withered thumb. Every night spent on this rotting tub, it seemed to chafe him more. "Patience," Samel spoke through closed teeth, scarred lips hardly moving, dark eyes on the guards and on Trig in particular. "A few weeks and we might be with your friends in Thorby." She turned a familiar frown on him. "You'd better have friends in Thorby." "You'd be surprised who I know." Yarvi wriggled down into his furs. "Trust me," she snorted. "Trust?" Yarvi turned back to her. Samel might be spiky as a hedgehog, but she was tough and clever, and there was no one on this ship he would rather have had beside him. He needed an accomplice, not a friend, and she knew what to do and when. He could see it as though it were already done. Every night he lulled himself to sleep with thoughts of it. The south wind rocking gently at a wharf beneath the citadel of Thorby, the guards snoring a drugged slumber beside their empty ale cups, the key turning smoothly in the lock, he and Samel stealing together from the ship, chains muffled with rags through the steep and darkened streets he knew so well, boot-printed slush on the cobbles, snow on the steep roofs. He smiled as he pictured his mother's face when she saw him. He smiled even more as he pictured Odin's, just before he rammed the knife into his guts. Yarvi stabbed and cut and stabbed, his hands slippery hot with traitor's blood, and his uncle squealed like a slaughtered pig. "The rightful king of Getland," came the shout, and all applauded. None louder than Grom Gilgorm, who smashed his great hands together with every squelch of the blade. A mother Skur, who shrieked and capered in her joy and turned into a cloud of clattering doves. The squelching became a sucking, and Yarvi looked over at his brother, white and cold on the slab. Isurin leaned over his face, kissing. She smiled up at Yarvi through the shroud of her hanging hair. That smile. "I'll expect a better kiss after your victory." Odin propped himself up on his elbows. "How long is this going to take?" "Kill him," said Yarvi's mother. "One of us at least must be a man." "I am a man," snarled Yarvi, stabbing, his arms burning with the effort. "Or half a man?" Ulrich raised an eyebrow. That much? The knife was slippery in Yarvi's grip, and all the doves were a terrible distraction, staring at him, staring, and the bronze-feathered eagle in their midst with a message from Grandmother Wexen. "Have you considered the ministry?" it croaked at him. "I am a king," he snarled, cheeks burning, hiding his useless clown's hand behind his back. "A king sits between gods and men," said Keimdall, blood leaking from his cut throat. "A king sits alone," said Yarvi's father, leaning forward in the black chair, the wounds that had been dry all dripping fresh and spilling a slick of blood across the floor of the gods' hall. Odin's screams had turned to giggles. "You would have been a fine jester." "Damn you!" snarled Yarvi, trying to stab harder, but the knife was so heavy he could hardly lift it. "What are you doing?" asked Mother Gundring. She sounded scared. "Shut up, bitch," said Odin, and he caught Yarvi around the neck and squeezed. Yarvi woke with a horrible jolt to find Trigg's hands around his throat. A crescent of fierce grins swam above him, teeth shining in torchlight. He retched and twisted, but he was held fast as a fly in honey. "You should have taken the deal, boy." "What are you doing?" asked Samel again. He'd never heard her sound scared before, but she sounded nowhere near as scared as Yarvi was. "I told you to shut your mouth." One of the guards snarled in her face. "Unless you want to go with him." She shrank back into her blankets. She knew what to do and when. Perhaps a friend would have been better than an accomplice after all, but it was a little late now to find one. "I told you clever children drown just like stupid ones." Trigg slid his key into the lock and unfastened Yarvi's chain. Freedom, but not quite how he had pictured it. "We're going to put you in the water and see if it's true." And Trigg dragged Yarvi down the deck like a chicken plucked and ready for the pot. Past the oarsmen sleeping on the benches, the odd one peering from his bold furs. None of them stirred to help him. Why would they? How could they? Yarvi's heels kicked pointlessly at the deck. Yarvi's hands fumbled at Trigg's, good and bad equally useless. Perhaps he should have bargained, bluffed, flattered his way free, but his bursting chest could only gather the air to make a small wet sound, like a fart. At that moment, the soft arts of the minister were shown to have their limitations. "We've got a bet going," said Trigg, "on how long it takes you to sink." Yarvi plugged at Trigg's arm, scratched at his shoulder with his nails, but the overseer scarcely noticed. Out of the corner of his weeping eye he saw Samel standing, shaking off her blankets. When Trigg unlocked Yarvi's chain, he had unlocked hers too. But Yarvi knew he could expect no help from her. He could expect no help at all. "Let this be a lesson to the rest of you." Trigg stabbed at his chest with his free thumb. "This is my ship. Cross me and you're done." "Let him be," someone growled. "He's done no harm." Jowled, Yarvi saw as he was dragged past, but no one marked the big man. Beside him, from Yarvi's old place, Ankron watched, rubbing at his crooked nose. It did not look like such a bad place now. "You should have taken the deal." Trigg bundled Yarvi over the ship oars like a sack of rags. "I can forgive a lot in a fine singer, boy, but—" With a sudden yelp, the overseer fell sprawling, hand suddenly loose, and Yarvi jabbed his twisted little finger in Trigg's eye, gave him a wriggling kick in the chest, and went tumbling free. Trigg had tripped on Nothing's heavy chain, pulled suddenly taut. The deck scrubber hunched in the shadows, eyes gleaming behind his hanging hair. "Run," he whispered. Perhaps Yarvi had made one friend after all. The first breath he heaved in made his head reel. He scrambled up, sobbing, snorting, careered into the benches, through oar slaves half asleep, clambering, slithering under oars and over them. People were shouting, but Yarvi could scarcely hear the words through the throbbing of blood in his ears, like the mindless thunder of a storm. He saw the forward hatch wobbling, shuddering. His hand closed around the handle. He hauled it open and pitched face first into the darkness. And that's the end of that chapter. Join me next time for chapter 18, entitled Death Waits. Take care.